Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to this third video. And this video, I'm going to teach you how to determine the section properties of different polygons using Prokon. Okay, if I share my screen here, my Prokon screen. To determine the section properties of polygons, you start your Prokon software like before. Then you go to on your menu bar, you go to the General tab, and then you click on the Prosec tab, which is a section calculation tab. Okay, this is what you get. So basically, whatever I'm going to say here, like before, is laid out in this handout for those who have it. I'll just share that handout with you. Just to show you what's in the handout, and as well to show you the example that we're going to use for this lesson or tutorial. So basically, yeah, these are the guidelines, to determine section properties of a polygon. Whatever I'm going to say, whatever is in this slide here, is what I'm going to do, using that example. And so we'll not revert to this slide. I'll just go on ahead and explain what to do. These are some of the codes that we shall use, but again, like I said, I'll show you with demonstration, how to use some of these codes here. And this is the example that we're going to use to learn how to determine section properties of different polygons. And if I go back to my Prokon, I'll just share that now. Share Prokon section properties. Okay, now as you see, to determine the section properties of a polygon, you've got this section calculation window. So basically, you've got your input, your output, and your calc sheet. So basically, you start with your input, and well, before the input, let me just take you through the settings. Some people, you can set up, settings of your polygon if you want to. You can specify a title, you can specify a rotation angle of your polygon. The Poisson's ratio is, the ratio of the ratio of translation in the X and Y direction. At this stage, for beginners, who are interested in determining just the section properties of a material of a polygon, that's not so important at this stage. The number of equations basically is determines how accurate your results are. And normally, if you find yourself using a demo version of the software, you'll see you'll have, I think, on the 200 minimum, 200 number of equations. And so basically, you cannot analyze complex polygons. The units are the units, and and you can change the units to whatever you want. Okay, so that's basically the settings, and pretty simple. So basically, to determine the section properties of a polygon, the first, so you've got 3 columns in this window here. You've got the code, you've got the x/radius, you've got the y/angle. Now, there's various ways of doing this, okay? But I'll just take you through the simplest ways of doing it. Now, to start describing a new polygon, like the one I showed you, you use the plus code. So basically, you've got a code here. You change this code depending on what command you want, what you want to do with your input. So basically, if I want to start describing a new polygon, I'll use the plus code, okay? And the first dimension, the first coordinate this time, the first coordinate that I type in here or is the coordinate of the starting point, okay? So in my case, that's 0, which is the origin. And then I'll go to the next line. So basically, the input here is based on relative coordinates. The coordinates you're entering are based on the last point entered, okay? Now, there's so many ways of doing this. You can use CAD software, but you'll see all that as you go along. For now, we're just looking at the simplest way of doing this, okay? So I'll go to my next line, and again, enter the dimension. Let me just show you from my guidelines from the figure. So basically, I took this as my origin, okay? Now I'm going to move in the X direction. Okay, so basically I need to move 1,200 in the X direction. So if I go to that, so if I go to my Prokon, share that, section properties, share. So basically I go to the next line and I say, okay, I need to move X. Now we're talking about X not radius in this column. So we need to move 1,200 in the X direction, and then you enter whatever coordinate you enter. Whatever dimension you type in, you need to press enter. Okay, as you can see, you got 1,200. Now you go to the next line and say, okay, what do I have to move in the Y? I think it's 300. We'll double check that. 300 in the Y. Sorry, that's negative 300 because we need to move downwards. Negative 300. Let's just share the figure, the polygon again, just to be sure. Yes, there you go, 300, and then you got 150 in the Y, then you got another 300 here. If you look at this, that's 300. So just not that dimension. I mean, not those dimensions down, because I'm not going to refer to this again. Okay. So basically, I'm at this point. I move 300 down, so I need to move to this point. So you can enter this side of this polygon using the dimension of this line and the angle. That's one way of doing it. But we can also use the X and Y dimension coordinate, So basically, but remember it's relative to the last point entered, okay? So if I go to my Prokon, so remember, so we are at this point here, okay? So we need to move, minus 150 down and 300 in the Y. So we need to go 300 in the X, which is in the X direction. I mean, in the negative direction, because we're moving this side. So it's minus X 300, and then we're moving down minus 150. Notice that we've got two dimensions in the same line, the X and Y, because this is a slanting line. Okay, when you have a straight line, then you've got only minus 300, like the previous one. Okay, so at this point, it's pretty easy. I just move on like to the next dimension is minus 550. Then you've got, then I need to move in the X direction, which is minus 100. As you can see that. Now at this point, okay, this is a bit different. So let me just go back to our shape. So we are at this point now, I already worked out this dimension as 100. You can double check it. At this point here, we need to enter this semicircle or bulge. And I just take you back to our notes here. Whatever, all those commands that I'm using, as you can see, plus means start describing a new polygon. That's what I've been using now. Minus means, start describing an opening. This is the same as what you have in your theory of structures notes. I mean, basically lessons. Then there's a couple of other, codes here. The arc, the circle, and the bulge. Okay. So going back to our figure, so we need to describe this semicircle here. So there's, like I said, there's so many ways of doing this, but I'll use the bulge command. Okay. So with the bulge command, all I need to know is the bulge amplitude, which is the 200 here, which is kind of the radius of that semicircle. And then I need to know the distance the bulge covers, okay? So if I go to my Prokon, I'll share that. So I'm at this point here. Now when entering the bulge, the first thing you specify is the bulge, the distance the bulge, covers. Okay, so that distance is 400. You can just double check that. Basically 2 times the radius, which is minus 400 in the X direction. That's the dimension covered by that bulge. Then next I go and specify B for bulge, and then specify the radius. Now when I change this code, I'm not referring to the X dimension, I'm referring to the radius. Okay, so the bulge radius is 200. So that's how you do the bulge. Simple. Next we enter this dimension here, which is minus 100 in the X. And then I'll go same dimension as this, so it's positive 550. Okay, and then this, of course, is a mirror of that. So basically, you're moving 300 in the X, which is minus 300. And this time, you're moving 150 in the Y. This time, it's positive 150. Exactly. So then you can close it up by saying positive 300 again in the Y. But you don't have to, as long as you got your shape, as it is on your paper. So basically, one way of checking this result as it is now is checking this is the overall dimension. Just double check this. If I share my figure again, so just double check that you've got 1,200 as your overall dimension in the X, and then this is the Y dimension. overall dimension should be 1,000. So this is 550, you got 600, 700, 1,000 exactly. So, you know, that's fine. So now our next aim is to enter these voids here. Okay. So we've got 4 voids, 1, 2, 3, 3 circles, and this, you know, triangle here. So those are our voids. Okay. So we know, all you need to know here is for a circle you need to know the center, you know, the center point, the center coordinate relative to the global origin. Okay. For a polygon, all you need to know is you know, the coordinates of any point here on this polygon relative to the global origin. The global origin, which was 0. Okay, not the difference. When we were entering these sides, we were, you know, entering coordinates based on the, you know, relative to the last point entered. But now, when we're entering the voids, we are, you know, we are referring to the global origin, you know, the origin of this whole polygon, which was this point here. So basically, you need to get the coordinate of this point here, which is 300 minus 150 in the y. Okay, so that's how it works. So let me just share my polygon again in Prokon. So basically, now that I want to enter a new, I want to enter voids, I need to change my code. I'm no longer dealing with a polygon. I'm dealing with a void. So I need to change my code to minus. The same way you do it in your hand calculations. You know, when you want to subtract out something, you when you have a void, you subtract out, you know, that area. Okay, so it's the same thing here. The software does. So I specify my minus. This time, this means I'm starting to describe a void. Okay, and like the description for a polygon, the starting point on this, the first coordinate on this line here, where you got the minus, is the starting point of that void. Okay, if that void is a circle, that point is a center. If that void is a rectangle, that void is any point on that rectangle, you know, with coordinates relative to the starting point, to the 0. Okay, so now we'll enter our circles here. So basically, minus starting point of that circle is the center of the circle, which is we got as 300 in the x, minus 150 in the y. So that's our starting point for that circle. Then we go to the next line and change the code again. These codes, you don't have to cram them. It becomes second nature, like it is for me now. I just know I want to, you know, it's a void. That's the starting point because it's a circle. That's the center of the circle. Next line, I change to C for circle. And now I'm dealing with radius, not x dimension. I'm now dealing with radius of 50. There you go. Pretty easy. Next, there's a new void, a new circle. So I go minus again. You know, I say 600 and same line, so it's minus 150. Again, you got C, you can just type it in if you want, then 50. Okay, next is minus again, new void. It's 900 minus 150, C for circle, radius of 50. Pretty easy. Remember, I mean, this is the easiest tutorial. I mean, this is the easiest exercise you can have in Prokon. I mean, it's so easy. If you had another polygon attached here, okay, on this polygon here, all you need to say, all you have to do is just say plus again and start describing that new polygon based on your 0, on your global origin. Okay, so you work out the points, you work out the starting point at this point here based on your global origin, and then you enter those new coordinates. It's quite easy. Okay, so now let's go to the last void. I've got minus again. It's another new void. Starting point is somewhere there. Okay, what was that? It's 400, and you got 300, and you've got, I think it's 450. Let's just double check that. Because remember, if you get your coordinates wrong, if you get your radius wrong, then you're going to be working out the right answer for the wrong. You'll be getting the right answer for the wrong question. So just make sure you answer, you work on, you know, you get your dimensions right. Okay. So this is let me use this as my starting point. So that's, if I see this is 300 and 100, so that's 400. Then in the y, I've got 450, exactly 400, 450. Let's go back to Prokon. Where I go share Prokon. Void starting point is 400 in the x, positive 400, and in the y go down minus 450. That's the starting point. So that's where we are now. So therefore, this void is a polygon. It's not a circle, it's a polygon. So we describe it like we describe a polygon. Remember, the minus tells us it's a void, but it's a void in the shape of a polygon with sides. It's a sided void, okay? So we need to describe it like we describe a normal polygon, okay? So we'll say, okay, now this 400, that's where we're at now. So we need to go 100 in the x, positive 100. So that's wrong, actually 400. Okay, you see, and then I need to go, I think it's 150, I've forgotten. No, it can't be, minus 150. And then you need to go minus 400. And that's it. That's your void. Let's just double check that. The dimensions of that void, just to be sure. 400 and then 150. That's fine. Let's get back to our Prokon. Hold on. Let's see what does the question say. Our question says use the prosec module in Prokon to determine the properties of the section below. So these are properties: x left. Basically, these are the centroid positions. You know, x left, x right, y top, y bottom. That's centroid position. And then you've got ix, second moment of area in the y and x, plastic modulus. You know, radius of gyration in the x and y. Let's go back to our Zoom. To our Prokon, sorry, we share that. Okay, so we've done that. We've done our input, we've done our polygon, we've done our voids. So now basically after that, you go to output. That's all you need to do. I mean, you've checked your, checked your overall dimensions. That's fine. You know, you can use your mouse, you know, to zoom, extends and zoom. You know, you can use these commands. You know, it's pretty basic stuff. Output. Next, you go to output. Click on output. It's a bit slow. There you go. That's our output. Prokon will calculate, you know, your centroid position. That's your x left, x right. I mean, some people don't. I mean, you just need to be careful. I mean, that's x left, x right, and this is your centroid position in the y direction. That's y bottom, y. Obviously, you need to subtract overall to get the y dimension, the y top dimension. That's your area. That's your I xx. You know, second moment of area in the y direction. You know, radius of gyration. You've got z top, bottom. You know, void ratio. I mean, whatever you need, there you go with your radius of gyration in the x and y. Basically, whatever you need is there. All you need to do is read it off. Some people don't know how to read these values. This is 678 E3, which is, you know, exponent power, you know, exponent 3, which is the same as times 10 to power 3. Okay. The other thing that I didn't talk about is probably, well, what is something that I should have mentioned in the first place. Why do we determine these, you know, section properties, or basically also known as the bending properties? As you know, we determine these bending properties because you need these, you know, as you see, you know, as you go along in your engineering, you know, career, you'll see that some of these properties are required to determine other parameters in beam element, in structures, like, you know, say for example, deflection. If you want to calculate the deflection, you need the bending properties, you know, you need the second moment of area. So basically, you know, you need these bending properties to determine, you know, even other parameters in design. And you'll see this as you go along, for those who are just, you know, in their first years of, you know, of university. What else do I need to tell you about this? Just get back to the shear and torsion. You don't need this at the moment. We're just interested in the section properties. So basically, that's pretty much it. Let me just get back to our notes just to make sure I didn't leave out anything. Yeah, the units, I've talked about the units. Oh yeah, okay. Basically, you can actually export, you know, sections to the database. You know, you can export these sections that you've determined. You can save the section. If you determine the section properties of a polygon, you can actually export it to the database so that you can begin using that section in design. You know, for example, if you're designing such a bridge girder, and it has a unique, a custom cross section, you know, that is not available in Prokon, you can determine the section properties of that custom section and then export it to the database and save it. And then whenever you're designing your beam, you will be able to just pull it out and use it in your design. Okay, that's one of the advantages, but that you learn as you go along. We're not doing design, remember. For the beginners, it's just determining the properties. For the people, when we start design courses, then we will see how to use some of those things. Maybe the other thing I need to mention is that you can also determine, if I go back to my Zoom, if I share my Prokon again, there you go. You can quickly determine the certain properties of existing, the opposite of what I was saying of exporting. I can export this to the database and I can use it in design, but I can also determine the certain properties of, well, they are actually already determined of existing sections in the database. So what I do, I go to input, and then I look for section database. So basically, I can go to the section database and pick out any section that I want, steel, concrete, timber, and determine it, and I'll be able to see its section properties. So that I-beam, I just click on it, and there you go, output, and you have its section properties. Yeah, that's pretty much it. The other thing is, for the guys who are doing this, who are following this handout of mine, there's this tutorial that you need to do. Yeah, so basically this is a tutorial. This is pretty easy. This is a, you got a plus and then you enter your circle, then you got a minus and you enter that void. The starting points, which are the centers of this. Then this, you need to just describe this, starting from that point, you just describe it as one polygon, and I mean, it's pretty easy. Then this, all you need to do is go to the steel tables and get the dimensions of these steel sections, okay? And then just determine a starting point and then just describe them. I mean, the arc, how to enter this arc is simple. All you need to know is the radius of the arc and the angle. The angle is normally 90 or minus 90, depending on the direction you're moving to. So, I mean, this tutorial is pretty easy, but for those who don't get it, I mean, you can always ask me. So basically, for the students, you drop your table and you enter your results. Yes, basically that's pretty much it with the section properties. I'll just get back to so that's pretty much it with the section properties. Thanks for watching, and I hope it's clear. If it's not, just please ask. Thank you. Thanks for watching.